March 12, 2020, order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, and the governor's March 15 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Great Barrington Planning Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by joining the meeting via Zoom, by computer, and or dialing by phone per the instructions on the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so despite our best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. All of our votes will be roll call votes, and we'll start with roll call attendance. Jonathan Henkin?
Here.
Malcolm Fick?
Here.
Pedro Pachano?
Here.
Jeremy Ega?
Here.
Garfield Reed?
Here.
Brandy Nelson here. All right. So without further ado, we will start on our agenda items. Mr. Rumble, do we have any Form As?
No.
Seeing none, we will move on to the minutes for, let's see, do you want us to handle these each with a separate motion? Yes, okay. So we'll start with the minutes of our November 12 meeting. Do we have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Malcolm seconded. Any discussion? All right, roll call vote. Jonathan?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. All right, next is the motion to approve our minutes of November 18. Do we have a motion to approve?
As amended.
As amended.
So
Second.
moved.
Jonathan made the motion, Malcolm seconded. If there's no discussion, Jonathan?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. And then lastly, we have the minutes from our joint meeting with the Select Board, which was on October 29th, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve those as amended?
So moved.
Jonathan, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Malcolm. There's no discussion. Jonathan?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. All right, thank you for that. So next item on our agenda is a site plan review for 454 Main Street, the application from Coastal Cultivars, 399 Boylston Street, Boston, Massachusetts, for a retail marijuana establishment at 454 Main Street per section 7.18.3 and 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. This is continued most recently from our November 12th meeting. And is there anyone here from the applicant who would like to discuss this item? I don't know that there were any outstanding items, so we were just waiting for the select board.
Yeah, I don't think there were any outstanding items. I don't see anybody in the audience related to this application. If there are and you want to speak, please raise your hand.
Did the waiver impose any changes or any restrictions?
The special permit was granted by the select board without conditions.
Okay.
Okay, so we had gone through the site plan requirements of 10.5 previously with the applicant, and I don't believe we had any conditions. Is that everyone else's recollection? Okay, if that's everyone else's recollection, then I would entertain a motion to approve the site plan for 454 Main Street.
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
I'll second. It's Pedro.
Pedro seconds. Thank you. Do we have any further discussion, gentlemen? Hearing none.
Well, yes. Am I
Oh, go ahead, Garfield. Yeah?
Even though I don't have a vote, I guess I'm opposed.
Okay.
Even though I don't have a vote.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. And just to be clear, Garfield, just so the members of the public understand why you aren't voting on this item, you're the associate member.
Correct. I think
Right.
I noted that.
Thank
Correct.
you. I just want to make
Thank
that
you.
clear to the public in case
Mhm.
there's any confusion. We're not trying to exclude you unnecessarily.
Mhm.
So roll call vote, Jonathan,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
Pedro,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Brandy, aye.
There's just one hand up came up on this item. Brandy from Deb. Would you like to
Sure.
entertain a question?
Well, it's not a public hearing and there's really nothing to discuss at this point in time.
Okay, we can take that later.
So we will have an opportunity for citizen speak, and we will also be having a public hearing for the application for 148 Maple Avenue. That is the 6th item on our agenda, and we're presently moving to the 4th item on our agenda if the public is wanting to know where we are in tonight's agenda. All right, so item number 4 on our agenda, the site plan review for 292 Main Street. This is the application for exterior alterations at 292 Main Street to create a new entry door for Main Street into the building per section 10.5 of the zoning bylaw. I believe this is the former location where the Jane Iredale store was located.
Correct.
And do
That's
we
right.
have a representative? Looks like Diego Gutierrez has been promoted. Are you
Yes.
here on behalf of the applicant, Diego?
Yes, I am. I am the
Good
applicant.
evening.
Good evening, everybody.
Hi,
I'm Diego Gutierrez. I'm representing the owner, who is Kimball. He owns that corner building where under the name of Ware Block LLC. He is, since Jane Arundel left, that's space, which was two storefronts that were actually combined at some point. He wants to divide it up again in the interior, making it to 2 tenant spaces, 2 rentable spaces, and for that he needs a new entrance on Main Street to make it more useful and appealing to potential tenants. So with that in mind, we proceeded to, by luck, that front elevation where we want to place the front door has 3 plate glass panels, and they're butt jointed with silicone, and it'll be easy to take the middle panel out and then frame in an entrance right in the middle of that section. And what we're doing is to make it accessible, we're staying at sidewalk level, recessing the entry about 12 inches, putting in a single swing, in-swing 42-inch door in metal, painted metal. And the interior, inside the door, there will be a landing and then a small slope on the floor, because the actual floor level of the store is a few inches higher than the sidewalk. So at some point we need a small incline. We are aware, last night we met with the Design Advisory Committee. We reviewed the aesthetics of that entry. I've already done some elevations, some slight revisions, taking into account the recommendations, which was really just to make the elevation, the entry a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more in keeping with the other openings on that elevation. And that's the extent of the alteration. It's really simply framing in a door in that center space. And I submitted drawings, which you should have been able to look at. As far as complying with master plan and design guidelines, I think this is a big plus. It's creating a new tenant space where there were 2, and more retail. And the owner is already in negotiations with a potential tenant for that corner. So that corner will be occupied, hopefully, as soon as we can get an approval and a building permit and have the door ordered.
Chris, I'm curious how this ended up coming to us for site plan review. I figured it was a retail space and that this was more of just a building alteration that wouldn't trigger site plan review. Is there some rationale that the building department gave you?
I think, Ed was certainly, cognizant that this was kind of a, he wouldn't say unnecessary, but kind of he just going by the letter of the law that any permit requiring any permit on Main Street, I forgot where exactly he referred to, but it does need site plan review.
Okay.
It may be something to look forward for the planning board to just how to, on a minor alteration like this, to make this a little bit more, easier or not necessary. But on the other hand, the comments that the Design Advisory Committee made yesterday were good, and Holly Hammer brought up an amazing picture from 1908 of that corner, which is quite interesting. So there's a purpose to these meetings. Nice, good information comes up, and they had some good advice, and we're proceeding to we're going to meet next week with to get the approval based on the comments that were made last night.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah,
Did the board
Brandy,
member, do you have something to add?
No, I was just going to tell you, it's the first criteria of site plan review actually states, construction, exterior alteration, or exterior expansion, or change of use within
That
a
was it.
municipal, institutional, commercial, industrial, or multifamily structure.
I feel like we've had other structures that were retail to retail, and this did not get triggered. So that's the reason for my question. I feel like
This isn't triggered because of change of use. This is triggered because of exterior alteration.
Yeah, again, I feel like there are instances where I've seen exterior alterations that haven't come before this board either. So this just seemed like such a minor thing, but I think that's fine. Do any of the board members have any questions about what's being proposed before we review the site plan review criteria?
Is this building in the historic district?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions, board members? Hearing none, then I did pull up site plan review criteria unless Malcolm's already got them up.
I do not have it.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
So we'll do our review per 10.5.5.
Can we waive those?
What's that?
Can we waive this procedure?
I suppose we could. In reading through these, I don't see how any of them are applicable.
I would say number 6 is the closest one.
Agreed.
Item 6 in 10.5.5.
So just for members of the public who may be participating this evening, our criteria are things like removal of trees, cut and fill, obstruction of scenic views, vehicular and pedestrian safety, minimizing glare from headlights, unreasonable departure of character, contamination of groundwater, and provisions of zoning bylaws, including parking and landscaping. Many of these are completely inapplicable in an instance where there's just a new egress door being added to a storefront. So, Diego, as far as the character, materials, and scale, the feedback from the Design Advisory Committee pertains to that aspect? Yes.
It was the proportions of the framing and, recessing it and making it look a little bit more in keeping with the other openings and the old character of the building, which they always had, more pronounced recesses, but we decided to, for rentable space, some other issues, just to recess it enough so that there is a look that looks in keeping with the other doors that are adjacent.
Sure. Okay, great. So Jonathan, in keeping with your suggestion, do we have a motion to waive site plan criteria?
So
Site plan?
moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Malcolm seconded. Do we have any other discussion, board members? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan?
Aye.
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Randy? Aye. All right, Diego, best to you. Good luck.
Thank
Randy,
you.
gotta
Take care.
approve or disprove it.
Oh, we need a second motion to approve.
There's only one.
Sorry. Thank you, Chris. So we'd like to entertain a motion to approve the site plan review for 292 Main Street.
Oh, so moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
Second.
Malcolm seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. Jonathan,
Aye.
Malcolm,
Aye.
Pedro,
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Brandy, aye. Thanks, Chris.
Get over that hump.
All right, moving on.
Thank you.
Item number 5 on our agenda, special permit for 45 Pearl Street. Recommendation to the Zoning Board of Appeals on the special permit application from Dan and Jenna Huggins to expand a non-conforming home at 45 Pearl Street, filed per section 5.5 and 10.4 of the zoning bylaw. Looks like Mr. and Mrs. Huggins are here and able to present some information to us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So we are looking to do a modular addition onto our existing house. We are going before you because it is more than 25% of our existing house. It was,
It's been a family property for years in my family, and we inherited the house, and we basically just want to make it, larger, kind of, laundry room, playroom, some things like that for the kids. We have 2 little kids. So just some upgrades and make it bigger for the family. And that's mainly what we're trying to accomplish with it.
Okay. And the expansion is into your rear yard setback, is that right?
nope, it's the side yard
Oh,
facing
into the side yard. Okay,
towards the
yes.
river.
So is the issue that the lot is non-conforming because frontage, or what exactly is the issue?
It's not technically directly off of Pearl Street.
Right.
It was a shared property for many years. We've since subdivided it the last couple of years.
Right.
So it's just our lot is down at the end. We are not technically, we didn't even realize until this all happened that we are not technically directly off Pearl Street. So that they said that makes it a non-conforming lot.
But there was a Form A that said it was a legal building lot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Jonathan,
Yes.
this is Chris speaking. The board has Form A the lot and
Mhm.
endorsed that right of way as sufficient to serve the house. So that's true. But as mentioned in my notes to the board, because the house is small now and the expansion is big enough that it's making the footprint more than it's more than a 25% increase to the gross floor area. The building inspector cannot issue that permit without ZBA relief.
And so the only non-conformity is the lack of frontage?
Correct.
I see.
The house itself, the structure meets the side yard setbacks, and the proposal does too.
So the Form A doesn't give them any rights.
Correct. Not under zoning.
So looking at the aerial imagery, there's the house will technically proceed into the extended to the side yard. There's no development on the adjacent property. It's like there's lands of MERS between the two. I don't see any significant issue with the proposal. Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant? Malcolm, do you have any questions? You look like you're about to say something.
No, I don't.
Pedro, anything for you?
Nope.
Jonathan, anything for you?
No.
Jeremy, anything for you?
No.
Garfield, anything for you?
I'm just curious, if this is the house we looked at almost a year ago or more that looked like it might have been on Pearl Street and was on some other street? Sounds familiar. That's the only thing I want to know.
I cannot remember. I do remember we had a Form A. We may have had 2 Form As in this area in the last year or so.
Okay.
But Pearl
I remember
is,
looking at a house on Pearl
yeah,
on the corner, and this gentleman said that we technically weren't on Pearl Street.
yeah.
Just reminded me of the house I think we looked at.
It might have been. All right. If there are no more questions from the board members, I would entertain a motion to send a positive recommendation to the zoning board.
So moved?
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Pedro.
Pedro seconding. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan?
Aye?
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. All right. Best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, special permit application for 148 Maple Avenue, an application to the planning board from Great Barrington Development LLC, care of John Halpern, PO Box 216, Southfield, Mass, for the conversion of a former nursing home at 148 Maple Ave to a multifamily use, filed in accordance with sections 8.10 and 10.4 of the zoning bylaw. So this is a public hearing, and just so that the public is aware, this hearing will remain open after today's session. And so the first thing we need to do is have a vote to open the public hearing. Do we have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Thank you, Jonathan. Do we have a second?
I'll
Second.
second. Pedro seconds.
Pedro seconded. I think Jeremy won in that one, but anyway, Pedro seconded. We'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan?
Aye?
Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. All right, the public hearing is now open, and we'd like to entertain an explanation of the project from the project proponents.
Before you do that, you
Yes.
may need to read the public notice.
Ah. Chris, let's see. I must have that in my packet here.
Okay, I can call it up.
Actually-
The agenda item is detailed, sufficient for reading.
I did read that at the outset. Do I need to read it again?
No.
Okay,
Just checking.
thank you. All right, so do we have, I think we have Mr. Ferris and Mr. Elton?
Yes, thank you. I represent,
too.
So,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, this is Chris Rembold. So just when folks talk, whether you're on the applicant team or members of the public, please identify yourself, full name, and your address and or relationship to the applicant team if you're on the team for our record, and so everybody understands who's who. Thanks, Charles.
Thank you. This is Charles Ferris. I'm an attorney representing Great Barrington Development. I have offices at 500 Main Street in Great Barrington, and we also have Nick Elton of Elton Hampton here who'll speak to the details of the project. I wanted to outline the general conditions currently on the site and what we propose to do and why we feel it meets the town zoning bylaws for issuance of a special permit. So we are applying for a permit both under 10.4 and the new nursing home bylaw under 8.10.2 that we're still waiting for the Attorney General to approve. And they have somewhat overlapping but slightly different rules for granting them. I mean, the basic overriding concern under 10.4, as I'm sure you know, is that the adverse impact of the project did not outweigh the beneficial impact of the applicant's proposal. And in order to do that, you're going to take a look at the social, economic, community needs, traffic flow and safety, adequacy of utilities, the neighborhood character, impacts on the natural environment, and potential fiscal impact on the town. And then under the nursing home bylaw, there was some additional criteria. First of all, the board has discretion to determine whether the maximum number of residential units allowed on the site are, based on factors such as the impact on the neighborhood, adequate on-site amenities, recreational facilities, landscaping, etc. And then those criteria that you would use to exercise your discretion would be the scale of the proposal, whether in an existing building or an alteration or addition, adequacy of roads, driveways, impact on traffic, and whether the project is served by sidewalks and bike lanes and public transport, adequacy of utilities, and basic screening and landscaping issues. So let me get to the project. It is, the nursing home sits on a 4.2 acre parcel. It's currently 2.5 floors. It's been vacant for about 6 months. The new project, our building would add 1 floor to the existing building. So we would be going from 33,000 square feet to 44,000 square feet. The setback, which is generous from the street, is about 100 feet, and that would be staying. And in fact, the footprint of the building would remain the same. We will retain, there's about 2.5 wooded acres that remains. About 3/4 of an acre is landscape. And we would contend that there's really no change in scenic views. We are elevating the building about 11 feet. And that additional floor allows us to add 13 residential units to the project. So we feel that a minor change to the character of the building and a great benefit to the project and the community. The building will be renovated. We have sort of an old brick building. It's going to be updated. It's going to have state-of-the-art safety features and, of course, state-of-the-art energy efficient features. We'll have on-site amenities such as a gym. There's going to be a dog grooming and bathing area, bicycle storage for the tenants, and general tenant storage.
Mr. Ferris,
Yeah.
was there any visual that you wanted to share on the screen, or are you interested in showing yourself as you're presenting this information?
No, I think the board could do without looking at me, but you're welcome to add me in if you like. But I think when Nick does his presentation, he definitely will want to give you visuals, both existing conditions and his various floor plans, site plans, etc.
Okay, great.
So I just want to talk generally. As I said, it is in a medium dense area, residential area. It is connected to the town both by sidewalks, a very wide, generous shoulder on the road that serves as a bike lane, and it is on a bus route. We feel that the project will enhance the town tax base by more than $100,000. I don't think it will overtax services because with mostly studio and 1-bedroom units, there's going to be 48 units, and they only I think 4 2-bedrooms. Nick confirmed that, but
actually 8 2-bedrooms.
Eight 2-bedrooms. Excuse me. Thanks. But so there's going to be it's not as though it's going to be bringing lots of families into the school district. I think this is going to allow both younger people to stay in the community, work in the community. As I think everybody knows, the arc of real estate development over the last 30 years has been towards luxury condominiums serving a weekender market. A lot of housing is being bought up now by people who are converting it to VRBO rentals. And so there's definitely a shortage of residential property. There's been a decline over the last 30 years of people under 55, of approximately 10%. And as I read in the Berkshire Edge a couple of days ago, when the permits were pulled for 13 residential units on Railroad Street, that was the first building permit pulled for more than 4 rental units in Great Barrington since 1990. So there is a much needed, there's a strong need for residential housing, rental housing. This will allow housing diversity. It preserves the natural environment on the premises, and it's important to remember that this is currently a business use in a residential neighborhood. So we'll be returning the premises to a residential use more consistently. It's more consistent with the neighborhood. I'd just like to speak to a few more of the factors that you need to consider. One of the issues that has been raised in the press and at the select board was concerns of the neighbors for the impact on traffic in the neighborhood. I was able to review a traffic study that the town had already commissioned by Niche Engineering for the conversion of the intersection at Maple Avenue, Route 23 and Route 7. And this has very timely information that I think will enable you to determine that there is virtually no impact on traffic created by this project. The traffic study found that in April of 2018, going eastbound from New York towards the intersection, there were 5,731 cars on an average weekday in April. And I would point out that I think the traffic flow is probably higher past the building because traffic coming east, many people will turn onto Silver Street to get to the shopping centers. They'll turn left onto West Avenue to get to medical facilities, and they can turn into other retail stores before reaching the intersection. So it's entirely likely that there's more like 6,000 to 7,000 vehicles per day on a weekday. The nursing home that was there had 96 beds, employees, 3 shifts of employees. There would be visitors on a given day, medical visits, service contractors, and food deliveries. So in order to try to just estimate what the impact was, I first made a calculation. What if every single one of the 48 apartments had 2 vehicle round trips per day? And we know that some people they'll get in their car in the morning, go to work, and come back. That will be their only vehicle trip. Some people may not go out by car on some days. But anyway, if every single apartment had 2 vehicle trips, that's 4 trips. So in total, that's 192 vehicle trips per day for the apartment. That's a 3.3 increase over the number of vehicles if we consider that the nursing home had no vehicle visits, and I'll get to that in a second. So it's a minor amount of the overall daily traffic, and but we do have a way of comparing vehicle trips from the apartment versus the nursing home. There's an Institute of Transportation Engineers that publishes a manual called the Trip Generator Manual. I was able to find the 9th edition online. There might be an updated one since then. And that 9th edition estimated that at the peak hour, which I'm assuming is peak evening hour, rush hour, let's say between 5 and 6 p.m., a mid-rise, a low-rise apartment would generate approximately 0.58 trips per dwelling unit. So that's 28 trips for a 48-unit building. With nursing homes, they do it by square footage, and they said that for each 1,000 square feet, you multiply that by 0.74. So for a 33,200 square foot nursing home, that would generate approximately 25 trips at peak evening hour. So what you see is, according to the Institute of Traffic Engineers, there's virtually no difference between the traffic generated by this moderately sized apartment of 48 units and the 96 bed nursing home. So and if you look at the nursing home bylaw, you should only deny the adoption, the applicant's request if you find that proposed traffic will severely change the residential character of the neighborhood. So we have one of the busiest roads in Berkshire County, generating 6,000 or more trips per day. And I don't think you could conclude either that there's a substantial change or a severe adverse impact on the neighborhood by this project. So I did want to go into detail on that level. A couple of other points before I turn it over to Nick. We have submitted certifications from the water department and the sewer department that there's adequate utilities for the proposed new use. As we've described, there's on-site amenities, there's adequate transportation and road service. There is screening of the parking areas, and in every way, I really feel what's being proposed here is meeting what the town and this board wanted when it adopted this bylaw, which is to provide a reasonable amount of residential housing for the town. So before I turn it over, let me just say, whenever you do reach a decision, whether that's tonight or at a continued meeting, even if we don't have the Attorney General's formal approval of your bylaw, I would request that you consider taking a vote subject to that approval, because the quicker we can get an indication from this board that the project meets the criteria that they want it to meet, the quicker we can get this transaction closed and financed. And so I would ask you to consider that if and when we get to a vote, whether that's tonight or at another evening. So let me turn it over to a more detailed description from Nick Elton.
Randy, before we go to Nick, I have a question for Charlie, which is the special permit application from 2015 cited the fact that there were 88 beds, and you're quoting 96. What generated that difference?
I am just relying on some information that's been supplied to me. So it's entirely possible that is 88 beds.
Okay.
Unless, I don't know.
Can I interject here, please?
Is that, yeah.
Go ahead,
Can
Nick.
you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm going by the floor plan and by having toured the building. And the floor plan, I do it because the bedrooms are indicated as 2-bed or 3-bed. And I'm the one that came up with the amount that was shown in the original building permit set from 1968, which was 96 beds.
Okay, based on the 1968 plans, Nick? Does that clarify the point for you, Jonathan?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. All right, so Mr. Ferris, you want to move to Mr. Elton?
Yes, please.
Okay. Mr. Elton, are you ready to present something?
I am ready to present. Is there a way that I can get the screen?
I believe Mr. Rembold is probably working on that. Chris, you are muted at the moment if you were wanting to say something.
Nick, where did you go? There you are. Nick, you should have all the abilities of a panelist at this point, so you can try to share your screen.
You click on video, maybe.
Okay. Just give me a second here. I'm sorry.
Don't forget to introduce yourself before you start.
Okay. My name is Nick Elton from Elton Hampton Architects, 104 West Street in Sandusfield, Mass. But when I try to share the screen, it says host disabled participant screen sharing. Can something be done about this?
Chris, you're muted.
I thought I
Okay,
gave.
it's still the same. You hear me? Right? So I'm assuming somebody's working on this. Is that correct?
Chris is
It
working.
is. I don't see an option to do that, Nick, so I think I may be able to share my screen, which has the original submittal. Can you work through your plans off of that?
Okay. Okay. Can we start with XL1, please?
Okay. Okay, can everybody see that?
We can see the shared screen, Chris.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, this
Okay.
is. You want me to zoom in, Nick? Just
Okay, yep, that's the one. Can you make that slightly larger?
sure.
Thanks, Chris.
I want to thank everybody. The members of the board, for the opportunity to be able to present the project. I think Charlie has pretty much stolen my thunder, but I will go into a little bit more detail if that's acceptable to everybody. The building, as he said, is a 2.5-story building. It is a 1968 building, brick. It's a block. It's a masonry bearing wall, wood frame building. And it currently has water, sewer, gas, storm sewer connections to the street. And it currently has a parking area of 50 cars for the existing nursing home. And you can see that in this existing drawing right here. I would use my cursor, but of course I can't. So it obviously has an entrance off of Maple Ave that is slightly to the west. I'm assuming, at least for the sake of this presentation, that south is the front that is facing on Maple Avenue. So there is an entrance that's more to the eastern side, which is where he had his cursor a minute ago. And there is an exit way in front of the building back out to the street. And it is the intention to maintain that one-way flow of traffic. There is currently a dumpster recycle area in the rear of the building, way in the back, tucked up in the northeast. Northeast corner of the building, right where the cursor is shown. And I think we should go to L1.1, please.
Before you leave that, Nick, you said there's gas to the site, but there are two 500-gallon propane tanks in the back. Why is that?
I think the propane was used for the cooking, but there is a 2-inch gas service into the site currently. You can see that on the right side of the screen, to the right of the building, coming up and behind. It enters from the rear. So the boilers are currently gas-fired baseboard hot water. I think the propane was used for cooking.
Oh, that's a lot of cooking. A lot of people.
There's also an emergency generator, Jonathan. It could have been used for the.
That is absolutely correct. That is exactly why it's there. It's for the emergency generator. That is correct. Can we go to L1.1, please?
I can't see the sheet numbers easily, Nick, so let me know.
Okay, that's L-2. That's L-3. Yes. Okay. So as was mentioned earlier, well, okay, we can use this one, I guess. So this is the site plan. What is proposed here is to maintain the existing paved areas, impermeable areas on the site, with the exception of a reduction of about 3% of the impermeable area, because we are proposing 4 area ways to be added to the building, 1 on the east side or right side, 2 on the south side or the bottom side of the building facing towards the street, and 1 on the west side. And we are proposing to make the window openings into the lower level, which we are now calling the garden level, bigger and lower, so as to allow for more light into the lower level, and to facilitate the ability to put some housing units on those 3 sides of the building facing outward. These areaways are fairly deep. They're between 15 and 20 feet deep. I mean, deep meaning wide in plan, and so that when you're looking out of them, you're not seeing a wall. Generally, they are only lowering the grade about 2 to 2.5 feet, so that the retaining wall is very low around them, and they are landscaped. This happens to be the landscape drawing, so I will just discuss that very briefly. In all those areaways, you can see that there are some landscape materials shown in the red sort of squiggly lines. And there's also crushed stone in these same, this is the actual landscape plan, so I'm using them for both. There's also a washed river stone area directly outside the windows, so the plants don't grow too high right next to the windows. These areaways are designed to be able to accommodate 1 inch of rainstorm in a 24-hour period by natural absorption. And in addition, they're all sloped and pitched to catch basins, each one which daylight to the south onto the site. Thus, they are able to handle a 25-year storm easily with no problem, and with a maximum amount of overflow that can handle a 100-year storm. The existing roof is currently has a roof drain that drains out to the storm drainage in the street. So this building currently does not have a handicapped accessible means of egress. As you may know, if you've seen the building, there is a portico in the front with a set of stairs that lead up to the main entrance, which currently leads to the middle floor of the building. But the natural grade of this site is such that if you were to enter from the natural grade, you would enter halfway between the lower level, which we're now calling the garden level, and the first floor. And that is what we're proposing to do. We are proposing to make a new entrance from this site directly in between the 2 levels. And that happens to abut the elevator, where we will create a new entrance into the back of the elevator, making it a multi-entry elevator and allowing you to enter directly from that level and either go down 5 feet to the new garden level, or up 5 feet to the first floor, or up 15 feet to the existing second floor, or up 25 feet to the proposed 3rd floor. There is currently a steep ramp at the rear of the building that allows for access into the building. It is much steeper than the 1 in 12 that is permitted by code. It is a delivery entrance currently, although it has traditionally, up until now, been used to wheel people in and out into the nursing home, or to take people who were accessing an ambulance in and out, and also for vendors were using it. But it is much, much steeper. It is more like about 1 in 8. And frankly, I think that if you were in a wheelchair on your own, it would be a challenging ramp. We are proposing to maintain that ramp now that we have a new accessible entrance from the front.
Nick, can I
We
make,
are proposing to landscape. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I want to make a comment because I spent the afternoon trying to review these drawings. And it's really hard when you have that graphic scale on here that has nothing to do with the scale of the drawing. If you look at if you take that graphic scale, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Either that or every parking
Jonathan, I agree with you, but for purposes of just getting some information out from the applicant, maybe we can hold on that comment to when we're looking for some additional information from the applicant.
You are right. Now that I look at it, it is correct. And you're absolutely right. And I'm surprised that I hadn't noticed that before, and I apologize for that oversight. So there is landscaping shown on this site. It is there is a series of trees along Maple Ave that are proposed to be maintained. They're fairly mature, mostly evergreen trees. I also have photos if you'd like to see them as well. There is currently no screening to screen the parking that is visible from the street, so we are proposing to add screening along the south side of that area. We are also proposing to add some screening outside of the areaways on the south side to the east and west of the new proposed entry plaza, and also on the east side between the parking spaces 29 and 34 and the building. The other landscaping that is currently on the site, if you look, there's a significant number of individual trees to the south, as I mentioned, and also to the northeast. And if you scroll the site down a little bit, you'll see that the edge of the woods are pretty close to the existing parking at the rear of the site. I want to mention, because it was brought up at the Board of Selectmen's meeting on Monday, that there are a series of evergreen trees planted by the abutter directly on the western edge of our site to screen it, and I do have photos of that, which I can show you in just a second. Well, I can't because I can't. So, unfortunately, I just can't do that. Can we see the drawing L2, which is the lighting drawing for the site? You brought it up a minute ago, Chris.
Is this it?
What we see today, right?
Okay, this is a site logistics plan created. The proposed contractor for the project is, okay, that's it. Exactly it. Although, Chris, I did send you a new one, but we can, which addressed all the issues that you had asked for. Do you prefer to bring that one up, or do you want me to work from this?
I think if you give me a second, I can bring the other one up. Okay. Well, if you wouldn't mind, maybe we can work from this.
Okay.
I think this is the new one, isn't it?
So
It is the new.
there is currently a fairly minimal amount of site lighting. However, there are a series of metal halide lights on the existing building that shine outwardly towards the building. And we are proposing to remove those sites, that site lighting. And there are a few 6-foot-high light posts, sort of colonial looking, that we're also proposing to remove. We are proposing to bring the level of lighting along the incoming and outgoing driveways to a more reasonable level. Nothing nearly as bright as a shopping center. For those of you who might be familiar with the Boswick building that we presented to you several years ago, it is the same level of lighting that we were proposing there. It specifically increases the lighting level a little bit more at the entrance and exit points into and out of the parking area, so that people can see vehicles waiting to come out, and also to bring a reasonable amount of level of lighting in the parking areas. The lighting levels here are all state-of-the-art in terms of energy use, and they are also on they're on timers until a certain hour, at which point they are motion detector activated, so that we don't have these lights on all night long. And they are also night skylight fixtures, so they protect the light from escaping above and only present light in a downward and a slight filtered amount to the side. We present it in our proposal, and I have them ready to show you the fixture cuts for these lights, but it's more difficult for me to present them right now. There are also two lower bollard lights at the entrance. You can see them with the circular, with the two circular areas around them. So we have tried to create more light in the parking lot for a couple of reasons. A, obviously for safety, and for security, but we did not want to overwhelm it and make it too bright. So the lighting, we believe, is adequate for that, but not too strong. I don't think that I have any more to say about lighting right now. There is some additional lighting in the building that is building related, more to, at the entrances and to provide some accent lighting in various places. But it's all down lighting. There's no up lighting on this project.
How tall are the lights, Nick?
I'm sorry?
How tall are the light standards?
The light standards are 12 feet, and there are also two sets of lights that are mounted on the buildings at 12 feet. And there is one light. Most of these lights are single head, but there is one light where you kind of see a square outline around it in the back. That's a double-headed, has two heads on it. That's exactly right there.
And it's 12 feet basically to the bottom of the light?
No, it's 12. Yes, it's 12 feet to the bottom of the light. That's correct. They're gooseneck headed lights with a canopy on the top.
So Nick, if you wouldn't mind,
I don't know
if you could check with your vendor on that. The lighting plan, a lot of times it will have an annotation of what the height for the mounting is for producing this photometric plan, and the plan in front of us says MH16. A lot of times that pertains to the mounting height of the light. So if you could just double check that isn't the height of the light, that it is in fact 12.
Okay. I will definitely do that. I'm pretty sure it's 12, but the lighting, this is the same lighting company that we used for Boswick, and also that we're using at South Main, 910 South Main. And I would definitely not want to have them be more than 12 feet. I think that's the maximum that you can do. So I will definitely clarify that, and we can resubmit that to Chris probably sometime tomorrow.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions about lighting, or shall we go on?
The only other thing, if you're going to be looking at that, it looked like your cut sheets called out a UCM2 fixture, and the lighting photometric plan looks like it's calling out a URB fixture. And those appear to be different models. If you could just make sure that there's consistency between the cut sheets and what's on the plan.
You're right. I supplied an update. I believe it was Monday afternoon. I submitted new fixtures that corresponded to the light fixture schedule.
Okay. All right. I apologize. I have not seen those.
Okay. Because you're right. They weren't consistent. They were very similar in appearance, but they weren't consistent. Okay. Would it be important for you to see construction logistics plan? Is that something that you
Yes,
feel was
please.
important to see? This is a very generous site for the contractor. There's lots of room to store equipment in the rear because we are proposing to keep the parking lot in place. We have a drawing like that if you'd like to see it.
Mr. Rembold is showing it. Thank you.
And those gates are only for construction?
So those gates are only for construction. We are not proposing to have gates in the long run. I believe that the blue is employee contractor parking during the course of construction. The 3 dark blue are containers for storage of material. The red is for the trailer. And candidly, I don't remember what the brown and the green are. Dumpster is the green.
Gravel.
Excess gravel.
Okay, yeah, that's right. Yep. We don't anticipate any problem, and we don't anticipate that there's going to be a lot of dirt created by this site because they're going to be coming in on paved material and leaving on paved material.
Right.
As you can see in this particular drawing, which I didn't perhaps clearly state, you can see that the parking lot, the driveway that goes from the main parking lot in a westerly direction to the exit is being changed slightly to allow for the installation of the areaway. So the paved parking lot is the only new paving that we're doing. I mean, we're removing the existing one, which if you look closely, you can kind of see a dotted line where it was. And we are substituting it with this new one. And we are also creating a pull-out area at the front, a drop-off area, and it's also an area to allow people that are moving in, to allow moving trucks to be, or vans to be placed there, and wheel items into the front door of the building where the elevator is directly right there at the front entrance. There is no loading dock required by zoning code for this scale building. But we do have an additional loading area, as I said, in the rear of the building.
So Nick, how are the
reasonably clear?
How are the gates going to work? If there's a dump truck's the first one there, is going to be projecting into traffic. Well, how do the gates open?
These are manual gates, is the intention. I think it's the intention that during most of the day, these gates would remain closed. I'm not quite,
most of the day.
To be honest, I'm not a contractor, so it's a little bit more difficult for me to answer that question. But certainly the exit gate, I think the intention is to maintain that closed during the day, unless obviously vehicles are leaving. I believe that if there's an expectation of a large amount of traffic, I think the intention is, there is a line item currently for police assistance during there's a line item in the construction budget for that.
I'm just concerned about the possible traffic impact of trucks wanting to enter the site but can't because the gate is locked.
Yeah, Jonathan, I think what I'd like to do is have the applicant present their information, and then if we've got clarifying questions, let's do that, but then let's have our questions following public comment.
Okay, what I'd like to suggest is that the next appropriate drawing would be EX7, which is the existing conditions exterior. Unless everybody is reasonably familiar with this building,
We've all conducted individual site visit to the property.
okay, In that case, perhaps it makes better sense to go to these are the various photographic views all around the building. But if you've all taken tours recently, then you have a reasonable familiarity. I just want to mention on the south elevation, obviously we're proposing to put an extra floor on the building, which you'll see in a second. But in addition to that, that large 2-story portico, which has a stairway leading up to it, that will be removed from the building. The
As
building,
well
you
as
can
the
see, is
porch, the double
as well
porch.
as the 2 porches on the west.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wells, the 2 porches on the west side are proposed also to be removed. Okay, so can we go to A08, please? Okay, so what we have in these drawings is a series of exterior elevations to show what the building looks like, and also the view is very, very similar to the view that you have of the existing building, which is shown in the photograph directly abutting it. So what is proposed here is to add the additional floor to the building, as you can see. And that is virtually identical to the floor below. It's slightly smaller because on the south side, the building has a set of jogs or indents into the building, or protrusions. So obviously at the front entrance, which is where the current portico is, that we are maintaining that in the area of the main entrance. But as you can see now, we have a direct handicapped accessible entrance with a small patio in the front of the building, which has a bench and a place for bicycle storage for guests. And then it has a small marquee canopy over it with the number of the building and the name of the building, and an entrance directly into the building that is glassy and about 15 feet high. And at that point, you enter between the lower level and the upper and the middle level, as I said, and you can see the lowered areas around the building. As you can see on the south side, they're about 2.5 feet deep, so as to lower the grade in front and on the sides of the building and allow the windows to be lower. We are proposing to replace all the windows in the building, and in the existing building has double hung windows, and we are proposing to replace them with similar double hung windows. There was a question previously about the fact that we are doing black double hung windows. Frankly, we showed that graphically. I think the design review committee preferred us to consider other colors. These windows come in a series of different colors: hunter green, gray, white, etc. And I don't think we've made a final decision about that, but we're very, very open to considering other colors. In the addition, we're trying in general to try to have a slightly contrasting look. And in general, what we're trying to do generally is to keep the existing brick of the building more from an economic point of view. It's a very durable building. This building is very stable. There's no cracks or disintegration in the brick whatsoever. The building is very true and very, very plumb. We are proposing to add some ornamental set-in tile, which you can see, small red set-in tile into the brick. And the addition has a combination of a corrugated metal and a fiber cement panel siding. So with the exception of the small portion that you see on the eastern portion of the front, in general, we are leaving the brick exposed, except for that small portion on the front where you see the fiber cement coming down. And on the western corner, you can also see a similar portion is coming down. What we're trying to do is eliminate the somewhat institutional appearance of the building and give it a more residential, multifamily residential appearance. So, and those two types of sidings are the kinds of sidings that we are generally proposing to use on the building. And aside from that, we're maintaining the brick. And of course, where there's an existing basement, we are proposing to continue to use the foundation walls. We are doing an extraordinary amount of interior energy conservation on the building. We are bringing it up to the Energy Star new requirements and also to the LEED Gold standards. The building was recently modeled for passive house standards, and we are looking at the possibility of trying to get this to passive house standards, which for those of you who don't know is a higher level than net zero. The building is right now being totally outfitted to be PV solar ready. And if the budget will permit, we are hoping very much to do PV solar on the photovoltaic solar on the roofs. The building includes currently in the budget heat pump, heating and cooling, one for each unit. So each unit has full control over the use of their over the use and the amount of heating and cooling, and they are also responsible for the payment of it. This is, as far as we're concerned, this is the gold standard because it gives them a highly efficient heating and cooling system, and it holds them responsible for the payment, which we think will make them use the heating and cooling system in a more economic fashion because it'll save money for them personally. The domestic hot water system is currently a gas-fired centralized hot water system. That is the most reasonable economic system. We looked at other electric-based systems because of the fact that we have PV, but frankly, those are heat pump assisted. They take an immense amount of room and they are extremely expensive. We couldn't find them to be viable. But even with this gas-fired hot water system that we have, this building is currently meeting the passive house standards with a highly energy conserving window, which is what we're proposing to use right now. I think, could we see just one more thing I wanted to mention? As you can see, we do have a more decorative canopy in the front. It has some brackets, and we are proposing on that raised area right there. There is an opportunity to put solar. We are proposing now to make a slight change to what's shown in here, to have it pitched slightly more towards the south, which would be towards the front. We are doing that for two reasons. We're doing that because it would be more efficient, but we're also doing that so that people can see that there is a PV system proposed for the building. Can we see A09, please? I was intending to show you a dynamic model, but I can't because I can't, but I had it up and ready to present, but I can't. So the upper drawing shows the western side and the northwest corner. And that's a similar thing that you see in the plan. As you can see in the elevation, the parapet does jump up a little bit just to add some more architectural interest to the building. We are also adding in some units some sliding doors with a small Juliet balcony. We're doing that to add some amenities to some of the units, but we're also doing it to add a little bit more interest in the east and west elevations of the building. Can I see A10, please? Okay, in the upper corner of the building, upper left-hand corner is the northeast corner, which you can also see in the photo. Again, there's a similar treatment on the east side of the building where there are some Juliet balconies and there's some changes in the heights of the parapets. Again, you can see that the areaways are shown, and they do get a little bit higher as you go to the north because the natural grade of the site does get higher at that side, so that they're about 4.5 feet high at that point. Can I see A11, please? So these are some closer elevations of what you would see from the street, more from a street view. I wanted to mention that, as I mentioned before, we're trying to do everything from an energy environmental point of view as much as possible. So we are trying to meet LEED Gold standards. The roof insulation is R49. The wall insulation is about R29 or R30. The windows will be R20, a U value of 0.28. We are adding handicap accessibility, and we are also proposing to have 3 handicap accessible units inside the fully handicapped accessible units in this development, and all other units will be handicapped adaptable. We are adding a new state-of-the-art addressable fire alarm system, which this building does not currently have. We are putting in a new 13R sprinkler system and R13 in the public spaces of the building, which this building does not currently have. And we are making the site safer in terms of general safety and visibility and in terms of security. And of course, I'm here to answer any other questions that you might have.
You don't want questions now, right, Randy?
Clarifying questions about information, if there's gaps in the information provided that we'd like the applicant to fill.
He said there were 3 handicap units. The plans show 2.
That is correct. We have decided to add a 3rd unit. I'm sorry, but I haven't updated those drawings, but we have decided to add a 3rd unit.
Also, since we're looking at the exterior, Nick, where are you going to put 48 heat pumps?
We're going to put them on the roof.
They're all on the roof.
There are areas of the roof that are shaded by the parapets, so they're not available for PV. Those are the areas where we're proposing to put the heat pumps.
Okay, and one last question. These trees look really nice, but they don't appear on your landscape plan. Do you actually plan to plant these trees, or is this just to make the elevations look better?
Okay. I think the matter is they're there to make the elevation look better, because I think if you look at the site plan, there are a series of existing trees very close by on the southeast section, which is the one you see in the lower corner of the drawing that's showing. We are landscaping there, and there's a very limited area between the road and the areaway. We could conceivably put one on the west side, but there is a flowering apple tree on that side. One flowering apple tree, the only flowering tree on the site. So you're right. What we should have done was show the existing trees rather than the proposed trees. And we are, of course, willing to resubmit that. You can actually see that flowering tree in the photo right in front of the entrance, to the left of the entrance.
Yep.
Nick, may I ask, or maybe Charlie's better to answer this, or if I think I saw Sam is on the line as well. Could you please explain to us how you arrived at the number of units? What is the rationale for the number of units? And then my second question is, how did you calculate the height of the building for purposes of meeting the bulk requirements of the zoning?
Nick, you want to take that?
You want me to take the last one? Or all of them?
Yeah, I think you would comment it. I mean, I wasn't involved in laying out floor plans, so.
Okay. I'm happy to answer, certainly I'm happy to answer the last one. I think that maybe Sam might be a better person to answer the other one. But in terms of the last one, the floor-to-floor heights on this building are 10 feet. And so we maintain that same floor-to-floor height here. The height of this building is indicated at 30. The proposed height of this building is indicated at 36 foot 4 inches, which is the height that's required to achieve the additional floor level in there. That, just to be absolutely clear, does not include approximate 2-foot protrusion of the additional decorative parapets, which I believe are not required to be included in the height by the calculations. I might be incorrect on that, but I believe that that's true.
What other
I think
rooftop structures are there, though? You just mentioned PV panels and also heat pumps. Is there an elevator penthouse?
There's an overrun, yeah.
there is an elevator overrun of about 2 feet. You will not see that. It will be behind the parapet that you see in the front. And it's set back about 15 feet into the building. And it's only projected to protrude about 2 feet above the level of the roof. Because the roof trusses are a bit deeper for the snow load. So that's why the roof level there is 11 feet. And then the overrun, it requires us to have a 12-foot clear space from the highest level in the pit.
As to the first, go ahead.
I'm sorry, in terms of the numbers of units, as you can see in this elevation on the lower right-hand corner, there are several balconies that are shown here. You can see one over the main entrance, and then there's one slightly more to the west on the left side of that lower drawing, or shown on the left side of the upper drawing. So the upper floor has a slightly smaller footprint than the other, and candidly, that floor plan accommodates a total of 13 units, which is the way in which we arrived at 13 units in that upper floor. I think the overall reason that there are a proposal of more units deals with the demand on site, which I'm not at liberty to really answer reasonably. I think maybe Sam should take over for that, but I think it also deals with the economic viability of the project, both in terms of management and return on rental, to maintain the proposed workforce housing rentals. It proved to be more viable to do that with a larger number of units. Perhaps Sam could speak to that in a more reasonable way.
Yeah, this is Sam Van Sant, the project manager who's been working with the development team at 202 State Road in Great Barrington. Nick, I think you actually summed it up quite nicely, but just to sort of say it another way, it's really about economics, trying to strike a balance between having enough units to make it economically viable, but also offer something to the town, and then also, make it sort of architecturally interesting while sort of trying to maintain, as much of that brick of the original building. So sort of weighing and balancing those three is how we arrived at the number 48. So. Does that answer your question, Brandy?
Yeah, that helps. There is a bulk calculation in the code that you guys should revisit and just make sure that you're meeting that so that we have that for our record.
Not a problem.
Do any other board members have questions at this time before we open it up to public comment?
I have a couple questions, but I'm not sure if this is the time to ask them, but can I ask?
So clarifying questions about the information presented, just are we missing any information about what is being proposed for the project? Go ahead, Garfield, if you've got anything.
Let me ask my question. You tell me if it's the correct question. I should hold it. I'm wondering about the handicap spaces building. Or do they have easy egress to those buildings, to those sites? Are they on the first floor? Is there some kind of emergency plan if something happens to get people out that are handicapped?
Nick, are you able to respond to that?
Yes, I can respond to that. First, I wanted to, there are currently shown 3 handicap spots in the site plan. The fact of the matter is there's actually more, but we have designated 3, which is what we are required, which actually exceed what we're required to have by code. But since we're having 3 units, we wanted to have 3 handicap spots. This is a voice-activated fire. First of all, it is available for handicap. This is a building that is available for handicap use, but it is people that are.
What floor are these on? May I ask?
Okay, one of them is on the lower level, and one of them is on the middle. One of them is on the garden level. One of them is on the first floor, and one of them is on the second floor.
Okay.
And they're all 1-bedroom units.
Mm-hmm.
Because the bulk of the units shown here are 1-bedroom units. And right now, there are two. Obviously, a person in a wheelchair has 2 alternatives. First of all, there's a voice-activated fire alarm that will tell them that there is a fire. I mean, when I say voice-activated, there is a verbal fire alarm that tells people that there is a fire. There is a fire alarm horn strobe in each living unit, and there are 2 units that are for hearing and sight impaired people. But people that are in their units, in those particular units, or a unit for a building this size, are supposed to, if they want to, they have 2 options. They can leave by virtue of going in the elevator, but the elevator will go down to the lowest, to the.
Well, elevators aren't suggested in a fire.
That's correct.
That's for sure. We're not going to take an elevator in a fire. So what are we going to do?
That is correct. And for a building of this size, the recommended procedure is for those people to stay in their apartments until firefighting individuals come to the fire, except for the person that's on, there is no person that's directly on an accessible level. Every person needs to use an elevator to be able to get out. So.
But you already agreed to me that you don't use an elevator in a fire. So how are we going to do that? You yourself said you don't use you just said that you don't do that. So what's your plan? And is there an escape plan?
What the code recommends for this scale size building is that those individuals stay in the unit, and the fire department has training on each individual building so that they know that there are 3 handicap accessible units and that they have to go and retrieve the people from those units.
And they can get to them easily, and they need to bring a stretcher or something. This is all going to be workable for them and any emergency people that need to get to the handicapped folks.
Yeah, Kirk?
Nick, if you allow me for a second, typically in buildings like this, you'll have a route of egress that is fire rated. In this case, I'm expecting it's going to be the emergency stairs to get you out of there. And usually,
obviously,
in these
I
buildings,
haven't heard them
you'll
say
have-
that though, Pedro. I haven't heard from them tell me that.
Well, okay. Well,
All right,
Nick,
you're absolutely right. The main, all the hallways in this have a 2-hour rating. All the stairways have a 2-hour rating. Sorry, all the hallways have a 1-hour rating. All the egress stairways have a 2-hour rating. If a stairway exits directly to the out of doors, it is 2-hour rating directly to the out of doors. And all the hallways have a 1-hour rating.
And the building will be sprinklered.
And this building is fully sprinkled. And this building has a state-of-the-art alarm system, which is an addressable system, which tells them what is the source of the alarm.
Okay. Thank you.
And it also has a automatic emergency lighting system, which will light up the egress pathways out. It also has exit signs that will be visible in the case of an alarm.
And you said emergency personnel can get to them with the stretcher, et cetera, without a problem, enter their room,
Yes,
et cetera. Excellent.
You are proposing to remove the existing elevator and shaft and put in an elevator that is slightly large, put in a shaft that is larger to accommodate a stretcher. So it's a 3,500 pound elevator, and it will accommodate. It's specifically we're specifically doing this so that we can accommodate a stretcher.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was thinking beyond what you were asking, and I apologize for that.
Okay.
Pedro, did you have any clarifying questions at this point?
I guess I can just make a couple comments about the energy efficiency here, Nick. A couple of things the one thing I wanted to clarify is you said a net zero building that a passive house building is a higher level of efficiency than a passive house building. That's not exactly right. A net zero building actually consumes no energy at all. And a passive house building is just the highest form of energy efficiency. So your building is still using energy. And then I have a couple of questions. In a passive house, I'm a passive house certified consultant, and I know that you need at least an R60 in your roof and an R40 in your walls. So I think you might want to check on that. And then also you might want to check your windows too, because I'm not sure how you're going to get an air tightness in there if you're trying to go for passive house with double hung windows. It's really, really hard to do.
Okay. I just want to clarify one issue. So the thing with net zero is you're allowed to it's a calculation done with alternative energy such as PV, where the house typically does an energy analysis without the use of alternative energies. Anyway, and I will of course check on what you just said.
Okay. Malcolm, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, no.
Jeremy, anything for you?
No, nothing right now.
Jonathan, did we cover your items?
I have more, but I'll wait until after the public comments.
Me too.
Okay, me as well. So with that, we'd like to open up the comments to those members of the public. If you could please be sure to raise your hand. And Chris, it's *9 for those who are joining on the phone. If you'd like to participate, we do see a number of folks with their hands raised, and between Chris and I, we'll try and make sure we get everybody.
Who you want, Brandy?
The first hand I see up is Jim Valencia. Mr. Valencia, if you could just, if that is your name, if you could state it, and
you may have to unmute yourself, sir.
You appear to be muted, Mr. Valencia.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good evening, planning board members, and thank you for this time. I'll just make my comments quick. Couple things I want to state. During the November 24th planning board meeting, we were discussing a 910 Main Street that will be adding affordable housing.
Excuse me, this is Chris. I'm sorry, Jim, could you state your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. 84 North Plain Road. As I was saying, during the November 24th planning board meeting, we were discussing the granting of a permit for, I believe, 49 affordable housing units about a mile away from this from this housing unit. I think that with the additional 48 that's being proposed within a mile might be a little bit too much for the community. Also, nothing has been mentioned about the market rate affordability of these units. As we know, the community needs affordable housing and not more market rate housing that the community doesn't need. I know that there's a lot of people that look for apartments, but they're just not affordable. And as someone had mentioned, a lot of the apartments that are available are on VRBO, which kind of prices out the people or doesn't allow the people in the community to have affordable housing throughout the year. Also, I want to make a comment about the traffic on Silver Street. Since we have probably 50 cars in the parking lot that could be coming westbound, they have to make the left. So you might need a traffic light to just make sure that everyone is safe making that left-hand turn, where now there aren't really many cars making the left westbound. Usually people just go straight down 7 to, the Big Y or the Guidos currently. So those are my just comments. Thank you very much.
Mr. Valencia, just to clarify, I just want to make sure I understood the first part of your comment. You had mentioned another project about a mile away.
Yes.
And did you say that you think that this adds too much additional affordable housing?
I believe so, because if you look at the minutes, it says that the 49 units for 910 Main Street, and then it also says that's possibly an additional 94 affordable housing units in Great Barrington over the 18-month period. Now, if you include those 94 with the 49 that are being proposed, that seems like excessive. And also I wanted to mention, in one of the plans, it said a 4-story building, but the housing unit currently is a 2-story building. So I know they're adding 1 floor, but it seems they're adding 1 floor higher and then they're going 1 floor lower.
Yes.
So I just want to make those comments.
Sure. I had the same question about 2 versus 4, but when I went and looked at the site, there is actually a garden level that exists currently.
Right.
I think you may be able to clarify that, but there appear to be from the floor plans rooms in that basement level that would be the garden level.
All right. Thank you very much, Planning Board.
Thank you. Okay. The next person that I see with a hand raised is Nan Weil. Nan, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Brandy. Yeah. It's been an interesting conversation. Thank you, Garfield, for bringing up the handicap access
Just an address, please.
issue. And Nick, I was
Nan,
interested.
can you please, for the record, give your address?
Nan Weil, Main Street, Great Barrington. So yes, I thought Garfield's questions about handicap access were really interesting. And I appreciated Nick's responses about the collaboration that's done with the fire department in terms of their being clued into who is handicapped on the property. That was nice info. I'm wondering whether or not there is actually public restroom facilities available on the ground floor. If there are handicapped people or elderly people who wait for buses to come up to the entry or something like that, they may actually need to have access to facilities before they get to their apartment. And I don't know if this is standard in this kind of planning for a residential building or not, but I'm curious about it. Thank you.
Shall I answer that?
If you're able to, sure.
There is a proposed common men's room, handicapped accessible men's room and women's room on the garden level, which is the lower level of the building. I it is available to all the people that are residents of the building and their guests. And for the staff that work in the building, I don't think the intention is to make it available to the general public.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't talking about the general public. I was talking about people who are using the building. Thanks so much.
Sure, thank you. The next hand that I see raised up is Leslie Heilig. Ms. Heilig, it looks like you'll need to unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Leslie Heilig. I live at 32 Benton. I'm in a butter actually because I'm an owner of 100 Maple Avenue. And my concern is something you haven't addressed at all tonight, which is parking. If you have 48 units and 50 parking spaces, most people in a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, I think, would have 2 cars. And you have no provision for more than 1 car per unit, nor for parking for visitors. And in particular, I'm concerned about this because we have parking at our site at 100 Maple Avenue. And I would not like to see that used as overflow parking for this project.
Okay.
So I'd like someone to address the issue of parking.
So we have a lot of questions for the applicant, and I think that will be among things I've flagged as a question. If you're okay hanging on, we'll definitely get to that question.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next person I see with their hand raised comes up as Jay Horwitz.
Mute.
And you will need to unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to read.
Could you please give your name and address?
I'm sorry. Jamie Horwitz. I'm in a butter. We own the property of 34 Silver Street.
Okay, thank you.
And I wanted to reiterate the person who mentioned that the existing intersection of Silver Street and Maple has some safety concerns as it is. There's no sidewalks on Silver for that half, and people kind of crawl against the very edge of the road there. It's quite likely that the residents of the new housing would potentially walk or bike or drive to the Big Y and the shopping in that area. It's the most likely location for them to go in a regular way to the pet store and the Staples, et cetera. And there's both a real problem, I think, with the cars, but even more so for pedestrians there and bicyclists. It's quite unsafe and totally unregulated. There's no stop signs that address a 4-way intersection there or how people, the nursing home is not exactly at the intersection, but it's just jogging slightly off of it. So it's a little confusing there. Thank you. And I appreciate having a chance to speak.
Sure, thank you. We appreciate your comments. The next hand that I see raised is Bernard Kennan.
I'm Bernard Kennan. I live directly opposite of 155 Great Barrington B. My concerns are also the parking concern, and I want to echo that because it could result in street parking. And ultimately, I do, to address the parking issue, they're going to have to put in more parking spots, which then gets to the drainage, and that's going to be a real issue. And the other thing, I do want to echo the traffic and the statistics that were used to say the traffic did not increase. And when you have a very busy road and you increase it by a few percentage points, you don't make it quieter. And choosing the month of April as a study would have been false this year to do so. And so we would need some clarification because I do live directly opposite, and getting out onto that road is impossible. And now we've had 2 cars come through the fence on the other side, exiting from the exiting and landed in one of the houses across the street. And so it is not because they can't drive coming out of there. It's also because they're hit by fast coming traffic. The second thing I want to address is and even it's demonstrated in the photograph that was presented here today. They said most of the parking was never used there. That was not as busy a building as people say it is. And making assumptions it was as busy as it was with its problems. It was those parking spots were always half empty. And for somebody who lives directly across, it was obvious. So saying that it was busy and it's going to get slightly less busy is not true. It was below average busy to say that. The third thing I want to comment on, basically only adding an extra floor, somebody erects across the way, those raise privacy concerns for me. Somebody looking over my wall seems a little not something I signed up for. And mainly those. And the other thing is, if you look at the density of that neighborhood, just go to the railway tracks. Down to Silver and then up to Maple, there's not 11 houses there, and if you're going to put in 48 more units, it raises the density, and it's not what we as somebody who lives there wants, and a crowded neighborhood. Now I do want to echo the other comments on sidewalks, lack of traffic lights is going to be a huge issue. So I would question a lot of the statistics used here. And I'll defer the other comments to my neighbors.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the comments. All right, the next hand that I see raised is coming up as Van Wagner. I'm not sure which Van Wagner that might be.
John Van Wagner,
Hi,
1
John.
Newsboy Monument Lane. Hi. So my concern as well, right? The parking, the additional story. So trying to maintain the character of the neighborhood. This building is an institutional-looking building to begin with. So by adding 50% more to the height of the building, certainly takes away from any quality character. All the plans perspectives are kind of, it's kind of hard to say when you don't have an elevation view comparing the neighboring or the abutting houses. For instance, the Shimon's house to the west. I think it would be appropriate to have some comparison drawings as far as size, height of the neighboring houses compared to this proposed 4-story building, just to get that perspective. From the drawings, it's deceptive. It's also, to me, it's a very urban design, and for a town of 7,000 people, it completely does not match the character. Not just the number of houses here, but just the community in general. So that's my biggest concern. I'm all for renovating the building, more rental housing, but I think it should stay at the height that it is currently. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the comments. The next hand that I see up is Pete Jones.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the opportunity. My wife Trish and I live at 165.
If you don't mind, oh, I'm sorry. Your wife Trish and you. I apologize.
Yeah, we're at 165 Maple Avenue, so we're essentially directly across the street from the current building. Our kitchen window would look right into the front door of the building, and I'm really just going to echo all the other concerns that were raised. The character of the building, I think, is really unfitting for the area. You come down Route 23, approaching Great Barrington, you pass some lovely homes on the right-hand side. You kind of enter a village area setting with the Newsboy, Body and Soul on the left-hand side. And then, is this building, which is an institutional building, but it is offset. And of course, the proposed plan would be offset as well. But the addition of the additional floor and the facade on the top, I think is just totally out of character with a village type setting in that area there. I think it's more fitting for, say, Pittsfield or maybe even downtown Great Barrington. The traffic concerns are legitimate. We literally have had a car in the kitchen of my neighbor's home. We've had a car through the fence at our place. Adding 50 homes, as Bernard said, to an existing 11 home driveway access on Maple Avenue there is certainly going to increase traffic. A concern that I hadn't thought about before that you mentioned with regard to your planning criteria was one about headlight glare. And if the proposed plan is to require one-way flow of traffic, I think the headlights are literally going to be in our house for every exit. So that's a concern. Parking, you literally have one space per unit, and it's likely that at least a few tenants are going to have more than one car. But what about visitors? What about contractors? What about building managers? Where are they going to park? And I know you're going to address that a little bit later on. So those are the big things, my big concerns right now, and I appreciate the opportunity to voice those.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we appreciate the comment. The next person with their hand raised is Amanda and Mark Hochler.
Yeah, so we're Mark and Amanda Hochler, 193 Maple Avenue. I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening and actually want to just give a shout out to Chris, who I've emailed him a couple of times and he was really great about getting back to me with some data. So I own a 5.1 acre farm just down the road from the nursing home. I appreciate and share the concerns of my neighbors and the fact that this building is not fitting with the character of our neighborhood. And I have some statistics and some bylaws I want to take a look at. I do have one clarifying question before I do that though. When the building was constructed in 1968, was it an illegal building? Like, should it ever have been constructed here?
I do not know the answer to that. I think we'd have to look into that.
Okay, I thought I saw something in the newspaper mentioning that the building actually never should have been constructed in the first place. And so I feel that it is unfortunate that we're looking at the nursing home revision of it into a multifamily dwelling because it probably should have never been there to begin with. The other thing that I want to say is Chris was great in looking up the 2019 census data for us for our street. Was at 131 neighbors, 24 of which lived in the 98 bed nursing facility. And so I also pulled up a Berkshire Eagle article for when the nursing home closed. And it said that there were 24 residents and 50 staff members. And so if you think about 24 bed-bound nursing home residents who are not coming and going, who aren't doing things like Peapod and DoorDash because all of their needs are being met by the facility. And 50
That's a good point too.
50 employees over the course of 3 shifts adds about 16 cars to the parking lot. We're hardly looking at a bustling place of 98 people and 100 staff members coming in and out. I mean, the parking lot is empty to the point we bring the kids across the street to ride their bicycles. I was curious, I've only lived in the neighborhood 8 years. I was curious maybe before the nursing home went downhill, what the statistics look like. So I actually pulled up all of the Google Earth Pro data of the parking lot over the last 15 years. And if you look in that footage on Google Earth Pro for the last 15 years, you can see that there are maybe 11 cars in the parking lot at any given time. Another thing I have a concern about is the parking, and I'm taking a look at the Great Barrington bylaw amendments through 5/6/2019, 8.3, which states in Part 3 that 1 1/2 off-street parking spaces shall be provided for each dwelling unit.
no space shall be considered available for parking if such space reduces effective width of the driveway, providing access to more than one dwelling unit to more than 12 feet. In the event that the required parking spaces cannot be provided on the property, deviation from this requirement may be permitted in accordance with section 6.1.9, which basically says that you can override that, except that that just means that all of the cars from DoorDash, from people visiting at Christmas, are going to be parking along our very busy road. And I appreciate that while 3% may seem like a minimal number in terms of traffic increase, when you start to think about the number of cars driving past your house in a given day, a 3% increase on 7,000 cars is 76,650 more times that a car passes your house in the course of a year. 48 units, if we say even 2 more people move in, almost doubles the number of people that currently live in our neighborhood. And while we certainly are okay with the building being renovated, while we certainly understand that this is a need in our community, it has to be a good fit for the developer. It has to meet the needs of our town. But we live here, and I feel like a building of this size and scale, with its parking issues, its increased traffic, and its location in our predominantly tiny neighborhood, does not fit maintain the character. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate the comments. Next person who has their hand raised is Royce Jones.
Yes, am I unmuted now?
You are.
Good. I would like to say that I live at 135 Maple Avenue.
Okay.
It's directly across the street from the building that we're discussing. I mean, exactly across the street from it. And I would like next to say that I am in complete agreement with all of the comments that have been made thus far by previous participants in the conversation. I'll begin by saying that traffic on Maple Avenue is already very thick and heavy. I have a little dog that I walk 2 or 3 times each day, which means that I have to cross Maple Avenue to get to the sidewalk on the other side of the street. And traffic is so heavy that sometimes I have to wait between 5 and 7 minutes before I can safely cross the street. Imagine what the traffic will be like if the number of vehicles in the units are increased in the way that they are. I won't reiterate the previous points which have already been made and emphasized, because an excellent job has already been done by previous participants, but I would like to underscore, in spite of what I just said, the fact that there will be insufficient parking with this unit. Also, I would like to emphasize, as I stated in the letter to the editor, which I wrote to the Edge, that with the increased number of inhabitants in this facility, the level of trash and garbage will be increased. Now, we have good trash services in the area, there is no doubt about that. But as I said in my letter to the editor, we also have bears that roam the area. We have bears on Maple Avenue, we have bears on West Street, and on more than one occasion, bears have attempted to break into houses in order to get food. There is one case that I know of, which occurred this past year, in which the bear actually attempted to tear through the screen door to get into the residence. Now, I worked as a census enumerator and was chased off of a property over on West Street near the proposed facility by a bear who was approaching. In other words, this is a problem, and it will be a problem that will be increased very much if you increase the number of inhabitants in this building. Now, the last comment that I will make out of 20 or 30 more that I could possibly make is that I noticed from the previous discussion that the handicap facilities are 1 bedroom. My wife, who passed away a little over a year ago, was handicap bound. Now, what interests me about this proposal is that the handicap facilities are all 1 bedroom facilities. Now, it is often the case that handicapped people, as it was in the case with my wife, need assistance in getting into and out of bed. Now, if you have a wheelchair, even a non-motorized wheelchair in a 1 bedroom facility, then you have to have, in most cases, someone else there who is able to assist the handicapped person. And that becomes extremely difficult in a 1 bedroom facility. If you have 1 bedroom facility, you might have 2 twin beds. If you have 2 twin beds, that means you have 2 people at least. And in addition to that, you have at least 1 wheelchair. So the ability to assist the person in the wheelchair to manipulate, to get around is very difficult. This is not a good plan in this respect. I think we've covered the major points. I wanted to cover now the number of apartments, the fact that the handicap apartments are too small, the problem with the trash and the predators in the area, and parking. So that's all I have to say.
Brandy, you're muted.
The next person who has their hand raised is a phone number ending in 8739. If you could please identify yourself.
Speak.
I think we can hear you, sir.
This is Carol Purcell at 120 Maple Avenue.
Okay.
I am Carol Purcell at 120 Maple Avenue in the immediate abutter, and I am against this proposal for reasons that have been stated before. However, I would like to ask Charlie Ferris why he wants quick approval in light of the objections from the neighbors. Thank you.
Well, if I may just say, we appreciate Mr. Ferris's request for quick approval. However, the zoning that this proposal is proposed under has not yet been approved by the Attorney General's office. It was passed at town meeting in September, but does need to be approved by the Attorney General's office. So this board is not inclined to approve that until the AG's office has approved the zoning. So there's still deliberation that needs to happen and additional information that needs to be provided. And this process is part of collecting concerns from the community to be considered as part of that request for additional information.
Well, my additional concern is how that parking lot can be plowed with that number of cars likely to be parked there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't say liability.
The next person who has their hand raised is listed as Neil.
And Brandy, just for the record, the board had a longer statement from us.
I'm sorry, Chris, you got muted halfway through there. I'm not sure.
Just muted myself. The board had a longer statement from Mrs. Purcell in writing in your packet.
Thank you, yes.
He just acknowledged you.
Good evening. It's Neil Elms. I live at 6 Stanley Drive in Great Barrington. And I'm a renter and a proud renter, but I'm also very curious about what a working class wage is. And I hope that's addressed a little bit later. The other issue I have is I'm very familiar with a lot of the soil compositions here in Great Barrington. And I'd like to know exactly how the structural loads are going to be carried by an additional 25% over there on Maple Avenue. So I'm very curious about the construction between 1968 versus 2020 and see how that's all going to take place. So I'm looking forward to that being addressed.
Okay, Mr. Elms, is that the extent of your comment?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay, and can you just, I don't know that I got the question about the renting. Did you have a question in there, or was that just a statement?
No, it's really a question. I'd love to know what the definition of a working class rate for these units is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
All right. Chris, the next person that I see listed here is listed as E. Toppy.
Okay.
Hello, this is David Unger and Ator Toppy. We live at 38 Silver Street, which is one of the abutters. My question is, are we privy to the amount of the project, how much it's going to cost? Also, how much of the apartment's going to rent for approximately, and how long it will take for the construction to finish?
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Unger?
And this is Mr. Toppy. I would also add that I would reiterate all of the objections raised by my neighbors. I think they've all raised valid points. I am very concerned about the effect of the additional lighting, since the location of our windows faces the building straight on, as well as the fact that our property is the one that people walk along when they try and cling to the street on making the turn onto Silver Street. And so it's very dangerous. It's very difficult to walk. And it would be certain that people would be trying to walk from these apartments to the retail on Main Street. The additional traffic is also a concern. So as I said, I second all of the concerns raised by my neighbors for this project.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very familiar with that corner. I have clung to it myself. The next hand that I see raised, I see Mr. Hockler, Mark Hockler's hand raised. Do you have something additional that needs to be said, Amanda? I'd rather go to people who haven't spoken yet.
Sorry, go ahead.
This is actually, hello.
Yeah, hello.
Yeah, I'm Mark Hockler, 193 Maple Avenue. Just to kind of expound upon some of what my wife was bringing to earlier, I would just plead with the planning board regarding my understanding of the zoning bylaws through the May 6, 2019 town meeting, 8.3 multifamily dwellings, about requirement of 1.5 off-street parking spaces provided for each dwelling unit. Clearly, this is an issue with parking, but I would implore the planning board not to give a special exemption to this rule, because although, yes, we need apartments, we acknowledge that, but clearly the addition of units over 33 that would exist existing zoning don't, any benefit is certainly clearly has a very negative impact upon the community. And I'd like to make sure the planning board understands this and gives it consideration. The other point, there is another nursing home down the block, which may come to the same findings that we're having today. What's good for one may be good for the other. So we may look at a very big impact in a short period of time. And that's the only thing I wanted to add to that, but thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other individuals who would like to make comment? I've seen some people raise hand then put their hands down. So if there's, I If there's anyone else who hasn't made comment yet who would like to, I see Michelle Shimon. The hand keeps going up and down, so.
Are they having some issue? Let me try to find them and unmute them.
I know that they're in a butter and they had sent us some communication, so if they.
Mickey, or you're unmuted if you have something to say.
My husband would like to talk.
I have a couple things to say.
He's Richard Shimon at 180 Maple.
80 Maple Avenue. And I'm right next door to the nursing home. I'm actually 100 feet away from the nursing home. And I'm very concerned about my privacy over here. But furthermore, there's something I think the town should look at, or be, the sewer goes underneath the railroad tracks. We just put in a new water line out in front out here, and they stopped before and started up again before the railroad tracks. They were going to do the sewer also, I believe, but that train is going over there every day, 2 times a day, and been in there 100 years or more. Tell me how long that can last. I don't know. That's one thing. Another thing, I'd like some trees planted for some privacy on my side, evergreen trees. And then my question is what if they don't rent all of these places? Are they going to turn them into Airbnbs? Can that happen? People just coming in and out of there? Dogs. Can everybody in there, 45 dogs, be in that place? Where's the dog waste going to go? I guess, do you have anything more to say?
No, everyone has covered.
Yeah, everybody's covered what we
are
really concerned with. Those are a few extra things that I just thought. I've lived here since 1976. And I've had no problem with the nursing home whatsoever. That's all I have to say.
We just feel that it shouldn't be as big as it is with 48 units. We aren't objecting to it, but scale it back. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the comments. All right, I see hands raised from, I do see a new hand here, Patricia Sharp.
Patricia Sharp, 194 Maple Avenue. I would just point out someone brought up parking on the street. In fact, parking is not permissible on the street. So if you have only enough parking for each unit, people are going to park on the street and the police are going to move them, or else they're going to park in other people's parking lots. I really think at least the 1.5 that is the code needs to be maintained.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything else, ma'am?
No.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So are there any additional new comments? I see a hand raised for a phone number that ends 7860.
How could you put your hand up? Did you know it was up?
We can hear you.
And you'd had that raised for quite a while?
No,
or
I just
now?
did it right there.
So the individual whose phone number ends 7860, if you could please identify yourself.
Oh, that's what you
7860. I don't know.
Hello, do you have a comment? One more time, the person whose phone number is ending 7860, you're unmuted. So if you have a comment and could please make it, that'd be great. Okay, maybe they don't have a comment, Chris?
I hear them speaking. Can you hear us?
I think they might not realize that it's their turn.
Oh,
Hi.
hello?
Yes, hi.
Hi, this is Sharon Perlman.
Okay.
I live at 155 Maple Avenue.
Okay.
I'm a summer resident.
Okay.
And I love it up in Great Barrington. We were from the Copake area for many years, for like 50, 60 years, and then we came over to Great Barrington. I was wondering if there was any way we could petition the Attorney General to stop the building. Is there anything we could do to stop the building of the apartment?
Well, the Attorney General has to do with the zoning bylaw, and the zoning bylaw was passed at town meeting in September. So this is a procedural step that we're waiting on from the Attorney General's office.
Oh, okay. There's nothing we can do to sign a petition, the people that live nearby or whatever?
We took this matter up. We passed the zoning to allow this use as a town at town meeting. So this has actually been voted on by the town already.
Okay. All
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you have any other comment? Ms. Perlman?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Clarify, Brandy, Chris Reynolds speaking.
Yes.
The decision authority for this is the planning board. Once the Attorney General rules on the zoning bylaw, the decision authority is the planning board.
Right, that's correct. So we're the special permit granting authority. Okay, I do see hands raised. I'm not sure if folks want to continue to comment. So if you do not want to comment, if you could put your hand down. And if you would like to make an additional comment pertaining to some new matter, we can start at the top again and take those comments. So again, just put your hand down if you don't want to say anything. I'll start with Neil. Neil, do you have something additional to add, Mr. Elms?
I apologize. No, I don't.
Okay.
My hand's down.
Thank you. It's a tricky format. We're all learning it. So, Mr. Unger and Tapi, your hand is raised again. Do you have something additional you wanted to say?
I did not realize my hand was still up. I apologize.
That's all right. How about I do this? The phone number ending 8739, your hand is up. Do you have anything additional you wanted to say?
Yes, this is Carol Purcell, and I would just ask if you have considered the possibility of litigation if something goes wrong on the property that you're deciding whether to approve or not, because the litigation would affect the town and the planning board. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Shimon, did you have anything additional that you wanted to add?
Dick?
She's muted. Okay, there you go.
Michelle Shimon, did you have anything else?
No.
No? Okay. Amanda and Mark Hockler, anything additional you wanted to add? Your hand is still raised and you're muted.
Yeah, no, I actually had a question about the dog grooming facility on the premises. Is that strictly for residents, or would that be also to attract outside business? Because that would also increase the need for parking and increase the traffic and number of cars on the road. And then the other point I have is, I really hope that this is the only pandemic that we ever have to live with in our lives, because it's been long and arduous. But in thinking about infection control and spread of disease, is over 100 people sharing an elevator, sharing a stairwell, an exercise room, a mail room, and a laundry room really in line with trying to keep infection down? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, your hand is raised. Did you have any additional question, you or your wife?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry. Yeah, we're at 165 Maple Avenue again. And yeah, just a question. Mr. Elton mentioned earlier a design review committee. Is that something that the public can participate in? Is that part of this whole process, or is that internal to their design of the project?
The other Jones.
Yeah, Pedro, do you want to chime in here? This is your committee.
Yeah, I am a chair of another committee. It's called the Design Advisory Committee. And it is a committee that's charged with reviewing projects that are in what we call the Village Center Overlay District, which is basically liquor store to liquor store from the Maple Street intersection down to the Brown Bridge or the Rose Bridge, whatever it's called these days. And we did review this project in our meeting, in our November meeting. For those of you who are interested and don't know, the committee meets on the second Wednesday of every month.
Okay, great. Thank you.
This is Chris Reynolds speaking. In this case, another aspect of the zoning passed at the September town meeting had to do with the Design Advisory Committee and their jurisdiction. Pedro mentioned the existing jurisdiction is really focused on downtown.
What do you want?
But the zoning bylaws passed encouraged applicants for special permits or site plan reviews anywhere in town to also appear before the Design Advisory Committee for review and comment. So that's how they appeared in front of the DAC.
Will this project be before that committee again, or is that one and done?
Yeah, they will not be coming back unless they choose to.
Okay.
It's voluntary for them to come, but no, they're not required to come back.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Going down to the list here, I see John Van Wagner's hand remains up. Mr. Van Wagner, did you have additional comment?
Hi, I'm Madeline McMillan. I'm their daughter and I'm 16 and I've just been listening in. Would it be okay if I just add some young people commentary, or is that not allowed?
No, please go ahead.
Okay, so just as a young person who's been living here my entire life, pretty much, I have some concerns with like my little sisters, and I know that there are a lot of other little kids in the neighborhood, the Hawkless kids and some other kids down the street. And there are just some like situations, as people have been mentioning, with traffic, for example. I'm learning to drive right now, and it's already pretty difficult for me to get a handle on the Silver Street turns and all that sort of things. And so if we're increasing traffic, I have concerns for new young people who are learning to drive in this area, how it might be more of an encounter for them to get around that, as well as my little sisters play in the yard all the time, and people walking by is always sort of a little bit of anxiety boost if I'm watching them. Stranger danger, you know what people say. And I understand that these people in the apartments would most likely be good, hopefully good people, but it still raises a sort of awareness of 48 new apartments going in, 48 new strangers walking by our house, potentially with dogs as well. I walk to work. If I encounter people walking on the same street, I hate to say it, but it's something that I could potentially get more wary of, walking to the Big Y, that sort of thing. People have already said this, but when I cross the street, I already have a big traffic street. So more traffic, more people crossing, we would need to approach that in a different sort of way. But yeah, other than that, I think everything's been said that I kind of had, I've kind of had the same agreements with. I just really want to also highlight the accessibility with handicapped. That for me is a big problem. As just a young person, seeing how people live around and the height of the building, again, for my neighbors and for me looking at it. I'm in my dining room right now and I can look out the window. I can see it perfectly fine. You add another extra 10 or so feet and it's even taller, and it's even more of a sight to see, honestly. That's really all I have to say. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Sure, thank you. All right, I see hands raised for folks that have now spoken twice. So I'm going to assume that you just have not put your hand down at this point in time. Is there anyone else who would like to comment who hasn't yet? I see Lois Hartwick is, the hand just keeps raising and then going down. So did you want to speak?
Yes, I did want to speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you just give us your name?
Yes, Lois Hartwick, 188 Maple Avenue.
Thank
I am
you.
a butter to this property, and the backside of my house overlooks the nursing home. My house, most people may not necessarily know which one it is, but I'm behind Body and Soul. So it was part of that Bob Wheeler's estate, all of those, the house in front and the carriage house and the main house that burned down. So I've been here for a long time, and there are a lot of things that I would totally agree with. The traffic is a problem. Silver Street and the intersection of Route 23 has accidents that happen continually throughout the years, which I happen to hear and observe and go down and call the police or whatever is needed at that time. I walk my dog sometimes down the sidewalk. I have walked through the nursing home parking lot many, many times. I have never seen it filled. I don't think I've ever seen it half filled. So the comparisons and the discussion that were about it being suitable and somewhat busy as comparing it to what it would be is completely inaccurate. Also choosing the time of April as a comparison is when the least amount of people are coming here. Perhaps November might be another choice, but when the least amount of people are here and the least amount of traffic. The summertime is a huge amount of traffic, and it's completely different. And there are times when I sit in my driveway for 5 minutes or more just trying to get out onto the street. So there's a lot that goes on with that. I'm trying to think of it. Oh, one of the concerns I have is about the light and what is going to be shining into Mr. Shimon's property, Carol Purcell's property, and what it's like from my property, looking out over all of these lights in the parking lot. The main trees that blocked my property and Mr. Shimon's property and the nursing home were all cut down. So even if someone says that they will put trees, which Mr. Shimon's just asked for, along the border or what have you, they can't be 2 feet trees that are not going to grow or shield anything for the next 10 years. So I would really like that kind of address. My own personal feeling is that it's too large. There's too many people. There's not enough parking. It's going to be difficult on the services, and I do not think it serves the neighborhood. And I also don't feel the design of it is all suitable for our town. And the other thing that's just sort of a little aside, I don't know whether or not people will have pets, and I love pets, I have them. But if they don't have any place for their dogs to go, they're going to walk up the sidewalk to the lawn in front of my house, which people do now, and use it as a pit stop for their dog. And I don't really want that to happen. I wonder whether or not they have any place planned for animals to be able to be walked. So I guess that's, I've got other thoughts, but I think for the moment you get the idea that it's a plan that feels disruptive for all of us in this neighborhood. It really does. And the nursing home is not disruptive. It was so there were not that many people there. So if it's to be done, my preference and my voice, and I think I speak for most people on this street, is that it should be much less in terms of, make it 2 stories or whatever. It's just too many people for you. It's not appropriate. And I hate to have to sell my house because of this decision. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I'd like to see if there are any additional individuals on the line who would like to make any additional comment. I don't see any new hands that are raised at this point in time.
Just a reminder, if you're on the phone, to raise your hand. I think it's *9.
So the public hearing is going to remain open. We're not closing it this evening. If there are not any additional members of the public who are wanting to comment on this matter now, I think I would go back to board members. If there are any additional comments. From my perspective, this is obviously 10.4 special permit review, 8.3 multifamily, and 10.5 site plan. So I'd like, our objective, if we could focus on what else does the applicant need to provide to help respond to some of the comments we heard tonight, or any additional questions that board members have, that will get the applicant focused on getting additional information to us. So I can just go board member by board member, unless Chris, did you have any comments that you want to add?
Yeah, just one thing, this is Chris speaking. There's been reference to section 8.3, which is the section in the zoning bylaw that governs multifamily uses. In terms of parking, the proposed section 8.10 regarding conversion of nursing homes requires just 1 space per unit. So it's my opinion that 8.10, if approved, would govern for the parking requirements. Just to clarify there. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that. All right. So any board members have any additional questions or comments? You all look like you might. Jonathan does.
Of course. The zoning here allows 2.5-story or 35 feet. So yeah, 35 feet, 2.5 stories. And what they're proposing is 4.5 stories, right? Or 3.5 stories. They're proposing 3.5 stories. The 8.10 that was passed at town meeting has the language, the scale of the proposal, whether in existing or in additions or new structures, is not more detrimental to the residential neighborhood than the existing or previous nursing home are. Does that give us the latitude to waive the height restriction? That's a legal question. I don't know if you have a response to that, Chris.
No, we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, I think building off of that, Jonathan, what I'd like to see from the applicant for our record is a more thorough review of the elements of the zoning code that apply, including the proposed 8.10, and how this project meets or does not meet, and where it does not meet, why we should give consideration to what's proposed.
Okay.
I mean, I have a lot of other comments, but they can be taken up in the next meeting, I'm sure.
Is there anything in comments that you have, Jonathan, that would that we want the applicant to produce any additional materials or make any modifications that would help us in deliberations moving forward?
Well, I'll just run through them quickly if you want.
Sure.
The handicap spaces, as they're indicated on the drawing, seem very remote, and that doesn't make sense to me. I think we want them as close to an accessible path as possible.
Absolutely.
One thing is the drawings are completely unclear as to where sidewalks are. That would be helpful if those could be highlighted because the renderings don't show any sidewalks, and it's unclear how a handicapped person could get from their vehicle to the structure. I would certainly encourage you to look at the courtyard, which is one of the amenities on site, and you've completely ignored it. And it seems to me that could be a nice common amenity because it's sheltered from road noise. I would love to see north arrows that agree with each other and have them on every plan, and also have graphic scales that agree with the plan on every drawing. I think it'd be a good idea if at least one of the handicap units, you mentioned, I think the garden level, the first and second floor. What the plans that I have show is the garden level and the third floor, the top floor. And it would be nice to consider perhaps a 2-bedroom handicap unit as well. I would, since the parking is limited and we want to encourage pedestrian and bicycles, I think you might want to consider more than a bike rack for 6 bikes out front for 48 units.
Just to clarify, Jonathan, there's bike storage in the building.
I saw that, but it's only for 16 bikes.
Okay.
And I think it'd be nice to be able to leave your bike outside in the summer and lock it up to a bike rack. And, you know, an architectural comment, I mentioned this last time, Nick, about your I'm not sure what you call it, the overhang on the front of the building. It occurred to me in New Haven, one of the buildings at Yale does something very similar to that, except they do it with wind turbines. I can send you a photograph of that if you would like.
I'd love to see it.
Which would make a wonderful statement about everything we're trying to achieve in our community, and I think you're trying to achieve as an architect. But it effectively acts as a canopy, except they're wind turbines. So I'm sure I'll come up with more as I go through the plans again, but I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you, Jonathan. Malcolm, do you have any comments for the board? Or for the applicant?
I do want to point out, I mean, even though 8.10.2 says that 1 parking space per unit is the minimum, it also says that the special permit granting authority can require more parking than the minimum. So we're not tied to 1 parking space per unit. And I kind of feel strongly with a lot of commenters. I guess what I'd like to see, if there's not more parking spaces, I'd like to see the terms in the lease that are going to limit 1 car per tenant, because you know that's what you're providing. It doesn't seem to be a good business practice to limit the number of cars that tenants can have. But that's I really don't have any questions that would require additional information. I do have a lot to discuss when we talk again.
Okay, great, thank you. Pedro, did you have anything you wanted to request from the applicant?
My question again, it was related to John's question about the height of the building. I would like some clarification on how we're going to deal with that. And the other thing is with this light, I'm confused about which one of these UCM2s they're planning on installing, because we got the cut sheet for the UCM2, but there's 4 or 5 different lumen outputs that they can choose from. So if they can clarify which one they plan on using, I would appreciate it.
And I'm sorry.
Go ahead, I'm done.
Did they talk about the lights that are shown on the building? Yeah. I don't recall that.
Nick mentioned that there is some building mounted light that is downward facing to wash the face of the building.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the elevations, they do show lights all around the building. So, but he didn't mention about timing or any details about that.
Do you have a question about how those would be controlled and whether or not they'd be on all the time?
Exactly, and what the spill is on those lights.
Okay. Pedro, did you have anything more? No? Okay. I saw your lips move. Okay. Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd like to see the applicant talk a little bit more about some of the things that were brought up and more for the public's benefit of the need for these apartments and the need for these at the price points, at the rents that they're going to be at. And I mean, I get it's been talked about parking, but then for them to address that and how they feel that's going to work. I mean, I think those are my two biggest concerns.
Okay, thank you. Garfield, did you have anything?
Yes, must be a special day. Jonathan and I agree on something. I agree. I'd like to echo his sentiments about the handicap, as I had mentioned earlier. That has a concern for me. And are we not allowed, because we seem to be tiptoeing about it, what is the actual amount of money on these apartments? What will they be going for? And if they're going to be working class or supposedly working class folks, sure like to know what they're going to be going for. It with a dog grooming facility, gym, etc. I don't think they're going to be cheap. And I have other things to say, but I can save it if we're speaking about it again. But I don't know why we just can't come out and say what are they going to cost.
Sure. So again, is there anything else pertaining to either our site plan criteria or the special permit criteria that you think the application is lacking? So the special permit criteria are social, economic, community need, which I think there have been some comments there, traffic flow and safety, adequacy of utilities, neighborhood character, social structure, impact on natural environment, and fiscal impacts.
I'll save it for our next meeting because we will be addressing this again, I gather.
This will be on the agenda again, yes.
I will wait till then. Thank you.
Okay.
Well, and I think the applicant has a lot of things to go over with that, just from the comments that we received from the public, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Anything else from board members? From my perspective, Nick, just if you haven't been taking notes, I've been taking notes, and Chris, I'm sure, has been taking notes, and we can get you a list of items. So I had already made a comment about just checking the lighting plan, and I'll check those cut sheets. But as Pedro said, if you can kind of bound out which lights specifically you're using, that helps us understand exactly what you're proposing. I'd really like for the applicant team to provide a discussion on how the building facade meets the character requirements. That would be very helpful for us to understand more fully that you guys have looked at the neighborhood character and help us evaluate how the right balance can be struck between an institutional brick building and more, wood clapboard buildings that are in the area. If you could, just to clarify the question about height, if you can provide specifically how you calculated the height and how you're calculating it for the proposed additional story. I'd like to know from a site plan perspective if you looked at refuge storage area requirements adequacy for the number of residents that are going to be there,
Excellent question.
and whether or not you've looked at the potential for any banked parking. We don't like to overpark areas, and we would hope that in a redevelopment scenario like this, that it does accommodate people who don't have vehicles, and it's a great location for being able to walk into downtown, but also to Big Y Plaza. But if there was a need, as the project is more successful, could parking be added somewhere without any sort of detrimental impact to the neighbors? Can we plan for that now? And then have you looked at fire truck access to the site and had any conversation with Chief Berger?
We have met both with Chief Berger and with Ed May, and have reviewed the project very thoroughly in terms of fire and emergency vehicle access.
And they did look at fire truck circulation through that front driveway?
We did. In fact, the site plan that you see represents a minor modification relative to the placement of car parking.
Okay. Can you, if you've got like an email or a letter from the chief that just confirms that can be added to our record, that'd be helpful to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then with regard to landscaping, I think you guys have done a nice job with the garden level, providing some landscaping there, but it does appear that there's really no landscaping being provided between yourselves and the Shimons. And I'm curious if there's some rationale to that. I believe there was one commenter who I really agreed with, that it's difficult from your elevations to understand what the relationship of that property is to the building. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for some screening there that could prevent some of the issues about maybe lighting and privacy that have been raised. I think board members, I'd like us to just have a discussion about whether or not we think there needs to be any additional information regarding pedestrian and vehicular traffic, whether or not there should be a more formal traffic study provided. My personal feeling is that Maple Avenue is a state highway and is designed to accommodate more volume. I do think there are some good comments regarding pedestrian traffic. There's great sidewalk down into downtown, but it is more difficult to get across Maple Ave, and there's only a portion of a sidewalk on Silver Street. And no obvious means of getting from 148 Maple Ave to Silver Street. There's no crosswalk there or anything at this point in time. Do we feel that the information Mr. Ferris has provided is sufficient for evaluating traffic flow and safety? Does anybody have any opinion there? I, for one, would like to see some sort of traffic study.
So would I.
Yeah, and does the town have any sort of data like anecdotal stuff collected, either the town or DPW or the police, from complaints about that intersection?
You're asking about accident data, so
not just accident data, but like near misses and things like that.
Near misses are hard because they're not reported, right? So,
but that's what I'm wondering, if the town or the police department or the DPW have received comments about that intersection. I guess I'm speaking about the Silver 23 intersection.
I think that's where having a traffic evaluation where the number of trips generated by the proposed use and the amount of pedestrian volume and accident history at areas we are concerned with, which I think Silver and Maple Ave is probably the obvious question, may be appropriate in this instance. I don't know if I would love to do this with a consensus from the board, but yeah.
I mean, I agree.
I agree with you, Brandon. I mean, I would like, especially with the comments from the public. I mean, I think it demands more formal traffic study than.
Oh, I agree with you for sure.
Okay.
I mean, that's a major concern, and I think we have to address it.
Yeah. No disrespect to Mr. Ferris, but I believe he's an attorney. Traffic engineer, are you moonlighting on the side, Charlie? Outside of that, that was all I had. So Nick and Charlie, I know that's a lot of information. Appreciate you bringing this presentation to us tonight. It's great to see this building repurposed. This is why we wanted to pass at town meeting zoning that would accommodate this. So we're looking forward to seeing you guys again.
Brandy, if I could just ask one more question. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So we've several people have asked about the price of these apartments, and I would just like to give Mr. Van Zandt an opportunity to corroborate the quote or the writing in the edge that's stating that studio apartments would be $1,000 a month, one bedrooms would be $1,200 a month, and two bedrooms would be $2,300 a month. So
that is correct, Pedro. This is Sam Van Sant, the project manager, 202 State Road in Great Barrington. But that currently, that is what our pro forma is showing based on all our expenses.
All right, thank you.
Can I pipe in also? You know, if you reduce the number of apartments, you've got to spread the fixed costs over fewer apartments. So that would likely impact the pro forma. And with respect to the request for a traffic study, my major concern now about a traffic study is we are in an unprecedented situation of low traffic because nobody's going to work. So, or fewer people going to work. I don't think you can get a legitimate traffic study done that will give you information that's it's fair to rely upon. It just seems like you're possibly asking us to do something that can't be done. I mean, we could look into perhaps bringing more statistics from what's available, but asking us to do a traffic study in a situation when the community is not functioning as normal is concerns me.
I have to disagree with you, sir. I think you're using that a little bit as an excuse. I think April was not a great time. We can do the same thing in the summer, can be done, and it will be more reflective, even with less people going to work.
I think the other thing, if I may, that there is published trip data that is collected on a pretty regular basis by MassDOT. And so I don't know offhand what data is already available, but I know that they do collect that data and would be probably more representative of what's going on right now. And obviously available to you for your use.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you meant that we were supposed to put out something in the street to,
Yeah.
right, to count the traffic now. I'm just concerned that would not.
No, I don't disagree with you there. That would be difficult, but I do believe there's fairly recent data, and we've had other traffic consultants provide information over traffic counts for 10 years because there have been some fluctuations in trips over the last few years. Okay. All right. Well, if there's not anything additional from the board, thank you guys again for your.
Hold on.
Oh yeah, Nick, do you have another?
May I just one comment? I just want to respond to a comment that Pedro made earlier about the passive house requirements, and I did verify that he's correct. And I, in the process of trying to model the building for passive house, it will be at least meeting the LEED gold standard, and I apologize if there was any misunderstanding of it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Brandy, before you dismiss folks, you're going to have to ask for a formal motion to continue the hearing.
Yes, okay, thank you, Chris. So do we have a motion to continue the hearing? Do we want to continue it to the next meeting, Chris, which isn't going to be until January, right?
January 14th.
January
14th.
14th.
So moved.
So moved. Okay, do we have, Jeremy made the motion
What time?
At 6 o'clock.
at 6 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
And Jonathan seconded. Any discussion, board members? We'll do a roll call vote. Jonathan? Malcolm?
Aye.
Pedro?
Aye.
Jeremy?
Aye.
Brandy? Aye. Sorry, Pedro, did I cut you off? Did you want to discuss it?
No, I just was, wow. I'm just shocked that we're going to make it to 2021.
We're going to make it, don't worry. It's going to be better. Can't be worse.
Getting worse, right?
Exactly. All
Yeah,
right,
hopefully
so
not.
motion to continue this hearing. Chris, was there anything else we need to do on this application?
No, just to let folks know who are still on the line that the public comment period will still be open on that date. Typically, the board likes to hear comments about new information, and we'll ask the applicant to get the information as far in advance of that meeting as they can, so that we can put it into the record and share it.
Yeah, it'd be great if you guys could get any updated information to us at least a week prior to the meeting, so that we have time to review it and can have a more constructive conversation. And then if members of the public have any additional comments or questions, we would encourage your participation on the 14th as well.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, so our meeting continues, board members. We do have we do have zoning amendments, and I was hoping that the board would be willing to pass those over to the next meeting. I've got thumbs up from Jeremy.
We have to.
Yeah, it seems a little late to take those up right now. Chris did send them to us, so we should definitely read through everything. Does that work for everyone?
Yeah, what's the drop dead date on for next year in terms of really getting serious about
We
this?
need to do our hearings in March. Is
No pun intended.
that right, Chris?
I'm sorry, I was watching this.
The hearings are usually in March, but
So we have to start in January.
Yeah, we really have to work in earnest in
Wow.
January.
yeah, January will be a busy month for zoning amendment proposals. Just to clarify for the board, so we're not yet sure when the town meeting will occur. We're assuming that it will be outside again, which argues probably for a warmer month rather than May. So maybe we'll have a little bit of time to play with, but let's assume that January will be a busy month to work on zoning. So as the board knows, we're working on the B3 amendments, which I sent you. A mixed-use housing overlay incentive zone, which we've been talking about. And then there's the zoning proposals that did not get acted upon at town meeting in September from the citizens, which will have to go back on the warrant. But that's not really for this board to discuss, but just so you know that those will be on the warrant anyway.
And we have to rehear them, right?
Yes, they'll have to be reheard.
Okay. Jeremy, did you have a question about that?
Yeah, I'm wondering, do we want to consider having an extra meeting where we just do like Form As and zoning for that meeting? Because it kind of feels like we could get filled up talking about projects and things, and not have enough time to discuss zoning.
Yeah, I was thinking along the same line. So maybe we can look at our January calendars. You know, I know Jonathan's got his book club, but maybe we can find a day in there where he can squeeze us in.
Christmas Eve is the second Thursday.
That's true. I didn't want to have a meeting on Christmas Eve, though.
No, absolutely not. Unless you want to see rapping going on in
Well,
the meeting.
yeah, I mean, I think maybe we can try for 3 meetings in January. That works for everyone.
Okay.
You barely contain my excitement.
Thank you, Garfield. All right. Town planners report, Chris, or anything?
No, nothing at this time.
Okay, great. Do we have any board or committee updates for anyone? You can shake your
Oh,
head.
I've got something maybe I can share with you guys.
Sure.
So we've got John, I love this. We've got some contention on our board about the color of the bridge. So it seems like maybe the state actually has not used the color that the design advisory committee recommended that they use. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. If you guys have any comments or any complaints or anything about the color of the bridge, I'm be happy to take them back to the committee.
I think you should make it red, white, and blue.
I like brown. Just wait a few years, it'll be brown.
All right. Anything else for board or committee updates, issues, or concerns? Are any members of the public hanging on for citizen speak? If you are, raise your hand. I think Nan Wild, did you raise your hand for citizen speak?
Just to clarify, Brandy, the board can't take any comments related to the special permit.
Okay, thank you. Nan, Chris, are you able to let Nan speak?
During the public hearing process. Sorry, Nan. Try now.
Thanks, Chris. No problem. Just as a point of order for future meetings, I would love to see the face of the attendees or members of whatever committee who are speaking if they agree to be on camera. And if they are not on camera, I would love to see their name, Chiron post of their name while they're speaking so people who are watching know who is saying what.
Sure.
That's it.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you. And a long meeting, you guys do great.
Thank you. All right, I think I saw Eileen's hand up, but now it's down. Eileen, did you have a comment? It looks like Eileen did not put her hand back up.
Well, you can try now, Eileen.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Are the comments sent about 148 Maple going to be on the website?
Can you ask your question again, Eileen? I don't think we got the whole thing.
Will the written comments sent about the nursing home conversion be on the planning board's website?
I will check on that. I mean, they may already be in the packet. Were they in the packet?
I don't believe
did
they
not-
were in
I
the
didn't-
packet.
I just checked.
Okay. So we can add them to the packet.
Thank you. Not to the packet, but to the website. The packet's not on the website.
The packet is on the website, actually.
Oh.
We can send you a link.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Anything else from members of the public? All right, well, seeing no further hands raised and no further comments, so we'll adjourn this meeting at 9:16. Thank you, everyone.
Everybody have a safe holiday, okay?
Yeah,
job,
happy
Ray.
holidays.
See you guys.
Chris, Kim, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good job, all.
Bye, guys.